Welcome to the Cross the Line podcast. My name is Carlos Smith, and today's episode is sponsored by KB's Car Care on 321 North Main Street in Jonesville, South Carolina. They offer a hand car wash, vacuum, and clean interior. Full detail is also available. While you wait on your vehicle, customer seating is available as well as a dining area. They're open Tuesday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., so make sure you stop by. Today's episode is also sponsored by Big Ben's Desserts. If you need to satisfy your sweet tooth, this is the place for you. They have a wide variety of desserts, including cakes, ice cream, banana pudding, and my favorite, Oreo cheesecake. They're open Tuesday to Saturday from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. and Sunday from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. and closed on Mondays. Stop by and visit Big Ben's Desserts on 297 Spartanburg Highway in Lyman, South Carolina, where nothing could be sweeter. So thank you guys for sponsoring this episode of the Cross the Line podcast. And this is actually our first interview that we're doing over Zoom, but we have a very special guest with us today. This is an honor and privilege to have him on. He's had a huge impact all over the country, all over the world. But, today we have the co-founder of Reebok, Mr. Joe Foster. How are you?
I am fine, Carlos. And that sounds like a good place to go for some nice sweets. That's when we're going to call it, but we're fine. And thank you for the invitation.
Yes, sir. Before we dive into the book, and I have so many questions that I have to ask you, that I'm so excited. I just want to know, how are you? I know like we're saying right before we start, these are times that we haven't really seen, especially for me. I haven't seen anything like this with this pandemic. But how are you holding up during these difficult times of this pandemic?
Well, this is keeping me busy. It's keeping all of us busy. Zoom, right. The book. Fantastic. So really, whilst we've been sort of locked down a few times and, it's not been too good, but, I'm meeting people like you. Fantastic. Mm-hmm. What more could I want? And it's, we didn't have this way back, but now we've got computers, we've got Zoom. Well, we can meet people. And we've met an awful lot of people since that book came out. So it's great to be here. And, we're enjoying it. We are enjoying it. It's and we've got so much more to do. So many more. Off to Dubai in a month's time. So we're just traveling again.
Absolutely. Like I said, even though it's kind of tough, with this pandemic, you still have to make the best of the situation. And it's always for a lot of people, it's like a blessing in disguise, because it gave a lot of us a time to sit back and rearrange, reprocess things to let us figure out what's important in life and those type of things. And, since we're, as humans, we're always on the go working and doing so many different things. So it was a time for people to kind of take a step back, just relax for a little bit. So you just have to, just take a little break and, just process things.
Yeah, I don't think we wanted COVID to do that, but it did it for us. It certainly did. We could do without COVID, but you're quite right. A step back is a good thing.
Absolutely. No, I have some family members right now that have COVID right now, so it's hitting them pretty hard. But I check on them, make sure they're doing all right. But it's just it's tough. Hopefully they're gonna pull through it. I know they will, but just have to take care of yourself right now.
Yeah, doing it.
But so kind of talking about your book, your story is just so fascinating. And I have it right here. I read the entire thing. So I just want to know what made you say, it's finally time for me to, share my story with the world.
A number of things, really. A lot of people have said, why don't you write your book? And, I thought, well, I don't know who'd be interested in my book. And, but Wikipedia and Google, they, you ask them about Reebok and they give you a story. And I'm reading these stories and I'm seeing these photographs and I'm thinking, who's that photograph? That photograph of Joseph William Foster, founder of Reebok. I don't know who he is. And what's all this story about Foster's just changed the name? No, there was. And so all these different stories were out there. And obviously, it's people who got part of a story, invented a story, just making something up. So I thought, well, maybe it's about time I wrote the book and put things straight. So that was it. That was the start of it. And yes, since writing the book, it's been amazing how many people have said, why didn't you write that earlier? It's a fantastic book. They like it because it starts from two people. Mm-hmm. And, that's where we all start from, just that one or two people. And I think that inspires people to say, well, if Joe Foster can do it, why can't we? Well, you need some luck. You need all the things in the way, but you need to keep going when it gets hard. When it's tough, you need that energy, that determination. So writing the book has been quite revealing, and it does bring out the story of our early beginnings.
Absolutely. And can you talk a little bit about your writing process? How long would you say it actually took for you to write the book, and how was, kind of reflecting on some of the things that you shared? Because you opened up a lot, you experienced a lot of tragedy in your book as well. Like, how was that writing process, and just, kind of opening up some of those wounds again? How was that?
Well, it it took me about 7 years from beginning to being published, about 5 years to write the book. Now, I must have had about 6 or 7 different drafts. So it took quite a while. And, once you sit down and you write something, then you read it again, you think, just a minute, but this happened also, and this happened. And so the book develops. Your memory, I didn't keep diaries, but your memory does sort of relive some of the things that you did, and you remember a lot of the things, because when you're actually experiencing it, you're looking for the next. So when you're experiencing it, you don't really value what you're going through. And it's only when you sit back and you think, how did he do that? I just used to jump on an airplane with a handful of American Express travelers checks, and that was it. And we had no mobile phones. We didn't have computers. And wherever I went, trying to contact anybody, telephone systems were okay, but you just had to leave it with the receptionist at a hotel, and they would call you back. So communication wasn't that good, and you had to make decisions. I had to make decisions there and then, for right, for wrong, and I got a lot of them wrong, but in the end, we got them right.
I read your book because I'm so fascinated with entrepreneurship. So I read your book, and I also read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. And you guys shared a lot of the similar things. And one of the things I saw from both of you, that both of you ran track. Do you feel like that helped both of you? How much did that help, when it comes to, creating shoes? Because both of you ran track. So how do you feel that kind of helped you both?
Well, our paths were very similar. Indeed, they were. And I've read Shoe Dog, and I find that Phil Knight's story is quite it's quite fascinating. But we were a lot different, because Phil Knight never made a shoe. Phil Knight took Tiger, which is now Asics. He took Tiger because he thought they made a good shoe, and so he started selling shoes. We started making shoes. So we were making the shoes. We were designing and making shoes. And Phil didn't get his, didn't start designing. I think it was Bill Borman who probably was the designer. Yeah, he was the initial designer with the waffle sole. And it's only then. But, they never had a factory, so they always had to go to a factory to get them made. So we had a different road, but it was quite parallel, because Jeff, my brother, he just loved the factory. That's all he wanted to do, was make shoes. And so I did designing, he did some designing as well, but then he made the shoes. We had the factory, so we put things together. He loved that. And our agreement was, Jeff was in the factory, and it was, Joe, you do everything else. So the marketing, the travel, the sales, everything came down to me. So I got to tell the story.
How did it feel, early in your book, you were also talking about your father, because, when your grandfather started the J.W. Foster and Sons, and early in your book, you were talking about your father, and you said you were running and he would place bets on you running, trying to win races. How did that feel for you? Kind of almost like you were kind of like fighting for his approval. How was that, their relationship with your father?
Well, I didn't like running. I preferred playing a sport, playing a game. Running, to me, it was hard work. It was something you just did if you were a sprinter, and I was a sprinter. So that was something very quick. But there was no, I didn't get any real pleasure out of running. But, and obviously my father, yes, he placed bets, but I was a kid. I was, less than 10 years old, probably 7, 8, 9 when that occurred. And by the time I was 10, I'd sort of said to my father, no, I don't like running. So I think at that time he lost a bit of interest in me. I think it was all right whilst I was running and using the company's product, because one of the reasons, and it's in the book, I won a number of prizes, but I had an advantage. I had spiked running shoes during the war in the 1940s, and not many of the kids that were competing with me could afford running shoes with spikes in. It was something new, something different. So maybe I had an advantage, but even so, I didn't like running.
You also spoke about your dad and your uncle. They clash a lot typically, and kind of like your grandmother. She was the one who kind of was like the mediator, trying to keep that peace. Did you ever feel like you were kind of on one side or the other when it came to your father and your uncle and the family business?
Well, it was something really that, again, when you're young, and we were only teenagers growing up, I didn't get into the business until I was 17. And then I only had 1 year before national service. That was going off into the armed forces. In those days, we had to do national service for 2 years. So I only had 1 year in the business. And I was looked after by my grandmother when I was in the business, when I was working there, because I was born on my grandfather's birthday. So she had a bit of a soft spot there. She thought I'd sort of her husband come back. So I got a lot of favors, which was probably not fair, but you don't say no, do you?
Right.
And so we didn't know, neither Jeff nor myself knew that father and uncle were really at each other's throats or didn't like each other, because grandma was there. It was only when we came back, we went away, we did national service, we came back and we saw the company was failing. And we asked, why is this company failing? And it then became obvious that father and Uncle Bill just did not work together. And a company can't go anywhere if you're not pulling together. You've all got to pull in the right direction. And of course, it wasn't too bad until grandmother died. And grandmother died just about 1 year after we'd come back from doing national service. And that then was the end. My father and uncle, they didn't speak to each other. I mean, we have Adi Dassler and Rudy Dassler. The Dassler brothers, they were the same. But Rudy Dassler left and set up Puma. And of course, Adi Dassler is Adidas. So, but that didn't happen at Foster's. The arguments kept going on and on. And in fact, Jeff and I had to pull them apart on occasions because we're fighting. So, and we used to, I would say to my father, come on, we need to change this. And if we can't change it, we need to get out. We need to set up a separate company. You and us will set up a separate company. But he wouldn't do that. All he would say is, look, when I'm gone and Bill's gone, this company will be yours. But it was pretty obvious. And I said, look, Dad, we don't want you to go. That's not the plan. But this company will be gone long before you are. The way it's going now, it will be dead. And that really convinced Jeff and myself we had to do it alone. We had to leave the company and set up our own company.
Absolutely. And it's something you said that was interesting. You like your dad and your uncle came complacent. It was kind of like back then, people didn't, go against the norm and stir the pot. It was always just like the same way of thinking, like in society. And I just wanted to know for you, do you think, knowing what you know about your grandfather, do you think he would have become complacent, or do you think he would have, been willing to, change things and adapt to business?
Grandfather was quite a genius, quite a legend, because he either invented or he pioneered the spike track shoe. And certainly we don't see much or read much about spike track shoes before he made his shoes in 1895. It's quite possible. And he got his idea from cricket, because cricket boots have been being made for a while, and they had spikes in the bottom. And we think that he asked his grandfather, why have they got spikes in these shoes? And I'm pretty sure the answer would be for grip. They need that to grip, because when they're playing on grass, they'd be slipping if they didn't have a spike. So we believe that his idea was to make a running shoe, because he was in the local running club.
Mm-hmm. As a Boy Scout, you said that you had a moment where you were hiking in a blizzard and you say you realized that you controlled your fate. Do you feel like everyone has a moment, or it'll come a moment where they have something that hits them where it's like they control their own destiny, and whatever they want to do in life, it's in their hands?
Certainly, the younger you are,
mm-hmm.
the more certain that is. I think the older you get fixed into too many things. You're sort of cornered into whatever you're doing. You're a longer road. I think when you're young, you're indestructible. You know, Jeff and I was 22, was it 23? And Jeff was 25. You know, I was 25, Jeff's 26. And we, what can go wrong when you're young? Mm-hmm. You know, if you fail, you can start again. But we didn't have any ideas that we would fail. It was, no, we can do this. And I think when you're young, you do take those choices. And I think, yes, everybody has that choice. Well, we hope everybody gets that choice. I'm sure there are people in this world, and we've been reading just recently of things going on which mm-hmm. make you wonder how many people will have choices. But, you know, I think I was talking to Dan Pink, who you might well know, and he was saying how lucky we are, because Dan Pink's written about 5 books. He sold them very well. And he said, you know, to be born in America in the 20th century, that's luck. You know, and for me to be born in England in the 20th century, that's your first piece of luck, is to be born somewhere where you can have a choice.
Right.
You can make those choices.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you've got to say, well, yeah, you know, you look around the world and there's a lot of places you're glad that you've just not been born into. So that's your first stroke of luck. And that's when having that luck, it gives you the opportunity to change your mind, to do things, to make that decision.
Mm-hmm. And you know, like you said, today's society is like you say, being young, you should start early. Like, and I hear that a lot from a lot of entrepreneurs. One of the things, you know, just reading and interviewing a lot of the entrepreneurs that we talk to, a lot of them say, you know, that one of the best things you can do is just start early, start young, and like you make mistakes, you learn from them, but you continue to learn from it and you continue to grow. Do you feel like, you know, being in a family that created shoes, had that not been something that was in your family, do you think you still would have, you know, created shoes, or would you have tried your hand at something else?
I don't know. I don't think we sort of are able to really make a sort of vision of looking back on life. You know, I was born into it. But I think if you, you know, if you're looking around, you're young, and if you've got adventure, and you need a bit of adventure, you need to have that optimism, that will to do something, then I think, yes, maybe I could have made different choices. I trained as an engineer, so I could have gone into aerospace, the aerospace industry. I don't know. I suppose really it was just simple, it was just easy to follow the family business. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the choice there was, whilst we were in the family business and we knew what we wanted in terms of a product. So it was easier, I suppose, for us just to leave the family business and set up in a similar business than to leave the family business and set up in something else. We would have had to have a lot of interest in something else to do that. But, we were in a family business. We knew there was a lot of room in that business. We knew there was space. We knew that Foster's, J.W. Foster's, my grandfather's company, he started something brilliant. And, he was an influencer. He knew who to give shoes to and who to get to run in his product. And then he advertised a lot. I have a thick book of all his advertising, and it's incredible the amount of. So he died at the age of 53, which is quite young. Mm-hmm. And I think had he lived, I think the company would have grown bigger and bigger. But unfortunately, he didn't. And unfortunately, his sons didn't seem to have that enterprise, that willingness. I think grandfather did so well at building his business in his time that his sons just kept it going, just didn't need to, or didn't see the need to push it. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's another thing, another aspect of both my uncle and both my father. They lived through 2 world wars. Mm. So you got World War I, 1914, 1918, and then they're also living through World War II. And by the time that had happened, I don't know, maybe they'd lost the drive, the energy. By that time, they're in the 50s, after World War II, and probably didn't have that energy to say, right, what do we do with the business? Mm-hmm. So, if we're being kind, we can say that they were unlucky to be born at that time. Right. We're saying about luck, and yes, I was lucky, and Dan Pink, he thought he was lucky to be born in the 20th century in America. Mm-hmm. So, it does make you, when you reflect on what are the things that really made you make a decision. And, and providing you make a decision, and it might be a wrong one, but make a decision. Absolutely. Because if it's the wrong one, you can correct it.
Absolutely. If you had to say, just looking back, do you know how your brother, your father and your uncle clashed? Would you say they really truly enjoyed making shoes, or do you think just because it was just a family business, they just held on to it for as long as they could? Or do you think they didn't really enjoy it?
I think you're somewhat going on the right track here with the fact that did they enjoy? I think it provided a good living. And I don't think they had the spirit that Jeff and I had when we set up our company. They didn't have that spirit to take their company, the grandfather. I don't think they had that spirit there. Like I said, maybe 2 world wars took it out of them. But I think they were just marking time. They were just doing what they needed to do just to keep going. Whether they could see, I don't think they could see the fact that the business was dying. Say it gave them a living, and they almost did it out of duty. They've been brought up in the early part of the 20th century, and the duty was that you worked, but whether you had any vision, and they certainly didn't have the vision.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, had they listened to you, where do you think the company would have been? Do you still feel like you probably would have eventually left there to start your own, or what do you think the family business would have been had they listened to you?
Well, the family business, by the time we would have become involved in it seriously, would have lost too much of its energy. It had lost the energy. When you look back and you think of what my grandfather did, and how he got world records, he supplied in the Amsterdam Olympics. He supplied all the teams in the Amsterdam Olympics in 1920. And we have that written down on a letterhead. He supplied that. He also supplied every football club that you can mention in the United Kingdom. Big ones like Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea. He supplied them. So he had vision. And that vision, I'm sure he would have extended it and expanded it. maybe he didn't give his sons enough scope to become involved. Maybe they just were there making the shoes. But what would we have done? Well, I guess the problem there is the timing. Because, you know, had the business been growing, it would have been a different business. We would have been in a bigger factory. We'd have been looking at a bigger picture. But we needed Uncle and my father to work together to see that bigger picture. So difficult to say. I think as it happened that we moved away and come up with a new name. I think that gave us more energy that to drive J.W. Foster and Sons forward in this day. Today you need as few syllables as possible. Reebok is good. Adidas, Puma, Nike. You know, this is what you say now. You don't say J.W. Foster and Sons.
Right.
So there was probably a need to do some marketing work on that. And indeed, as I say, people did say all we did was change the name. Well, we didn't, but I think it probably would have needed a change of name.
And just out of curiosity, I know I may be showing my age a little bit right here, but just how big were you said Puma and Adidas back then? Because for me, I was born in '92, and for me, for the longest, when I think about the shoe brands, the biggest one that comes to mind for me was automatically just like Nike and Jordan. Even now, Jordan, like they keep putting out different Jordans now, and people are just constantly buying them off the shelf here, like constantly. But just how big was Adidas and Puma back then? Because to me, like I was saying, like when you think about brands here, it's like Nike and Jordan are like the elite right now. But how big were Adidas and Puma?
Adidas and Puma, they were the big boys, but they were only big after the Second World War, and they were in the American zone, so they were fortunate in some ways being in Germany, because Americans love the sport, and the American zone of Germany, which was occupied then, they went to Adidas and Puma to buy shoes because why not? And Adidas started to grow on that and really grew well. And by the time Jeff and I left the company in 1958, we left the J.W. Foster. By that time, Adidas were so big in soccer, so big that we couldn't touch soccer. We had to stay with athletics and rugby. Rugby was also another, because that was a north of England sport. So we had to focus on something we knew that Adidas were not in there yet, and certainly hadn't taken a big hold of it. So I think our decision was, well, Adidas and Puma are big now by comparison to us, and we need to carve out a piece of business that we can grow, and that was athletics. But athletics was only so big in the UK, and I knew that athletics in the USA was so much bigger. And so in order to expand our company, that's why I looked to the USA. And I thought, I also knew the guy who was a head coach at Yale University, that's Frank Ryan. He had been working with Foster's, but he was head coach. I think he was also the mile champion at the time, or he had been the mile champion. So I met with him and talking with him. Yes, every university, every college has coach, and coach is a god. Coach can do an awful lot for you, and you can get a scholarship, an athletics, a sports scholarship to go to university. In the UK, you couldn't do that. We had one university alone, Loughborough, that would work with sports. Otherwise, everything else was academic. So I knew that in America, we could grow business. Plus the fact the language is the same. Trying to do it in Europe with 28 different languages, cultures, countries, difficult. Plus the fact you had Adidas and Puma in there. That was difficult to attack that sort of market. So as you've read in the book, I mean, I spent, well, it was 1968 when I first went to America. And it was 1979 when I got a distributor, when I really found Paul Fireman. That's 11 years, 11 years, and at least 6 failures. At least 6 times we attempted to get into the market, got a good guy, got a little bit of distribution, but it wouldn't work. And, you know, the answer was the fact that, again, another stroke of luck. Running became a big category in America. Started off very late in the 60s, and all through the 70s, that was the growth period. That's when Phil Knight and Bill Bowman, you know, they brought in Nike. They built Nike during that time. And that was the big market. Unfortunately, we were 2,000 miles away from that market. And so it meant an awful lot of flying in, an awful lot of knocking on doors. But the good thing about it with Runner's World then, it started off as a sheet of paper, just an A4 sheet of paper. And by the mid-70s, it was a fully glossy magazine. And Bob Anderson was telling everybody which shoe to wear. That was okay. But he was saying you should wear, this was a number one. And I think a number one was a Nike, maybe a Nike Tailwind or something. The problem is you probably got about 40 million runners using roads training at that point. And maybe 4 million of those would like to buy that number one shoe. Unfortunately, you cannot. They were being brought in from Japan. So Phil Knight had no chance to satisfy all the orders. Absolutely no chance at that time. They were small, Blue Ribbon Sports, small company. And they tried hard, and Bob Anderson tried to tell everybody again, a second time, which was the number one shoe. The trade must have said an awful lot, because he changed it. And he changed it to a 5-star, so a rating. So that a 5-star shoe, you could have 3 or 4 5-star shoes. That gave us a chance, because I knew we could make a 5-star shoe, which we did. And we succeeded by making Aztec. And that was the answer to us. Instead, we'd been pushing to try and get into the market. But once we got a 5-star shoe, that was the hook. And you know very well, yeah, that was that magic thing that happens. So we had the hook then, and people wanted to buy our shoes. People wanted Reebok then. So and that was great. We were fantastic in the early 80s. We were a nice running shoe company, growing very nicely. But you know, that wasn't the full success for Reebok. The full success for Reebok was aerobics.
I just want to know, one of the things that I saw also was, you know, starting out when you had to move in briefly with your in-laws at the time to, you know, kind of get things going and get on your get things going. Was it kind of hard to, you know, swallow your pride in the beginning, you know, trying to, you know, say, hey, I know I had to get things where I need to go, I need to move with my in-laws and build things. Like, is it hard to swallow your pride as an entrepreneur trying to build something, or did you say, okay, I know I need to do this, let me go ahead and move in with my in-laws so I could, you know, build my business to become a success?
Well, fortunately, they were very happy to do that. They were very happy, very supportive. And that is good. I mean, my own father, as you know, he wasn't supportive because we left. But my in-laws are very supportive. And I had little pride to worry about. You're young, you're starting something. Well, I can maybe be proud now of one or two of the things we did, but in those days it was, it was just good that they were supportive, and they were happy for us to come back to live with them just for a short while. And but certainly my father-in-law at that time, he would do anything. He would help us And that's so important when you got people on your side.
Mm-hmm.
It just helps you. It just makes things so much easier when somebody's saying yes, yes, and there was assistance and help there. Had it been the other way around, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I say, at that point, I was more focused on a future than being proud, worrying about anything. We ended up living in accommodation, which was attached to the factory.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very convenient that that accommodation was there. But it wasn't the best of accommodation. But when you're focused on one thing, and that is how to get something moving, you don't really worry too much about that. You get on with it.
Absolutely. For people watching this interview who are going to watch it later on or listen to it, as an entrepreneur, how important is it to not live above your means? Because nowadays on social media, it's kind of dangerous because you just see a lot of success stories. Nobody posts their failures or the obstacles that they're going through. The only thing you see is they're traveling or living this glamorous life, but behind the scenes they may really be struggling. But so as an entrepreneur, how important is it for people watching this to let them know to not live above your means?
I guess it's more difficult today because there's so much on offer. We have television. Back in those early days, television was was only small, black and white. No big attractions. So I suppose local attractions were mostly sort of going out to dance halls, or what we had, pubs, doing or playing sport. And we could play sport, and we didn't have the holiday situation that you have now. And as you say, there's so much you can buy now. The shops are bigger, so many more things, and there's big attractions. So I guess today you have to be more disciplined than we needed to be. You're probably the same. We have racks of clothes. We buy clothes. Do we wear them all? Probably not. But I do remember back in those days, I probably had 2 pair of trousers. One that I was working in and one that I would go out in. And did you need any more? I don't know. Even today, we have racks of trousers and shirts, and but you probably have a favorite or a favorite or two, and you wear that, and maybe 90% of your wardrobe you don't. But we are spending the money, and like I said, the attraction is there. Holidays, and it's nice because you can see some beautiful places now in the travel programs. So I think it's tough, if you're not earning enough money to be able to enjoy it and have to see that. But you make your own life. Wherever your pleasure is with people. In those early days, my wife, well, first of all, she couldn't travel with me because I traveled a lot. I started traveling fairly early, and she couldn't. But after that, there was opportunities, many opportunities, and she just didn't want to travel. And she just didn't enjoy it until really towards the end and during the late 80s, when we were doing the Monte Carlo events for Princess Grace's fund, the Princess Grace Fund. We had stars from Hollywood, and it was a pro celebrity tennis tournament. So we had some of the best tennis players and a lot of Hollywood people. Even Frank Sinatra came over on one of the occasions to our event. So and those were nice events. So yes, my wife did travel on those occasions, and I think it's being together. I mean, right now, I'm married to Julie, who you've probably fixed this up with. When people want me to go somewhere, in fact, we're going to Dubai in October. We're at it's at the GTEX, big exhibition, big show that's going on there, and I am speaking there. But I said, if you want me, it's 2 tickets. There's 2 of us. Right. So now Julie and I, we just travel together, and I think that is, it's being with the right people is more important than maybe sitting on a wonderful big yacht so that you can do whatever. I think the people make such a big difference in your life.
Absolutely.
Having the people,
Yes, sir.
and being happy together.
Absolutely. You said something in the book also that was fascinating to me. Was in order for Reebok to succeed, you had to think big, but didn't know how to achieve big. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, when you strike a bit of luck and things start to move forward, you're still, you've been working these things out, one or two people, and you're working hard on this, and you really haven't felt the growth, but you're growing steadily. And it's other people, it's retailers. Somebody comes to you and says, wow, Reebok, that's a big company now, isn't it? And you think, is it? You ask yourself the question because you've not been counting heads, you've just been working hard. And is it? Well, if they think we're a big company, why don't we think we're a big company? And so it is a change of mindset of saying, right, we're big. Let's act big. Let's be that way. And it's a subtle thing that happens where you're just doing the same thing you've been doing, and you've been growing, but you've not been head counting. You've not been. Nothing seems to change much except you're selling more. And people are taking that job. People, you're getting accountants in there. You're getting a legal team. And people say they think you're big. You've got to act big. You've got to be big enough to do that job. So it is something that other people will tell you how big you are before you really recognize the fact that maybe we're big.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about the success of Reebok, and your father passed away, I know you guys didn't have the greatest relationship, but were you more disappointed from the standpoint of he passed away and didn't get to see the business, or was it more of like a point of what you didn't get a chance to kind of like prove him wrong? Like, look, we left the family business and created this big successful brand. Were you more disappointed in the fact that you were getting a chance to prove him wrong?
Well, I don't think it ever occurred to either Jeff or myself to prove them wrong. I think we wanted to prove ourselves right. Mm-hmm. That we were doing something. It wasn't that they were wrong. We were not trying to. We were not bitter in that way. Mm-hmm. We were just sort of. We saw it differently, and in seeing it differently, we had to do something about that. So doing about that wasn't really a matter of saying, look what we've done. We were not there to gloat or to say, look how big we are. We were growing nicely whilst father was still around, but not big enough. He did die before we really became a big company. Mm-hmm. And I remember mother saying, "Oh, your father would have been so pleased to see what's happening," and I'm sure at that point he would have been pleased to see that we were succeeding. But I don't think we ever looked at it, and certainly I never looked at it, that we were proving them wrong. Mm-hmm. As I say, I think it was more proving that we were right, and that was the right thing to do. Because I don't know, I think it's fairly negative to try, and there's a lot of negativity goes on. A lot of people ask me, don't you hate Nike? Don't you hate Adidas? Well, I think that's for the people who write stories, because I never hated Adidas. I never hated Nike, and I think what they have done is great. Mm-hmm. Adidas buying Reebok wasn't the best idea. That wasn't the best for Reebok. But, they paid a lot of money. And when you pay a lot of money, you have the right to do things. And even now, they have decided that they can't do it. Reason they can't do it, they know how to do it. They know how to make Reebok a big company. But it's the same footprint that Adidas have. It's just the same footprint. So they'd be taken away from Adidas. And it's how do you make that same company in that same space? How do you make it big? So I think the best thing is now that it's up for sale. We know that the authentic group of
Authentic brand. Yeah, I was
authentic brands.
brand.
Yeah, ABG, authentic brand, and they're going through the process. So it'll be interesting at the end of that as to where Reebok starts to become its own company again.
Was it hard for you to kind of, I know I'm skipping ahead of some of my questions here, but when we're talking about it, is it hard for you to kind of, let go of Reebok? Because this is something that, this is kind of like your baby. You built it from the ground up, you and your brother. And was it kind of hard to, step back and kind of like let it go?
Well, again, that's a question that I get asked. And that decision, we actually became number one. We became bigger than Adidas, became bigger than Nike. And by the end of 1980, we were the number one company. So I find it difficult to say, well, I should have made a different decision because we became number one, and that's great. And I'm still the founder, whichever way. And, I think if you want to see your brand succeed, and we're going back now quite a number of years, I think there's more money, more vision available these days. But back then, it was a decision that, okay, we need to bring the money in. And if you bring the money in, then, people need to have control. People need to do that because that's the money. And we have Paul Fineman working very hard. And of course, we got Stephen Rubin, who didn't put a lot of money in, but what he did do, he provided the product out to the Far East and provided a credit line, which meant that really he had a lot of money involved, and it worked for the company. Without that, you might think, well, the company would have starved the market because the demand for the aerobic shoes when the aerobics took off was tremendous, and it required an awful lot of financing, and Stephen Rubin was there to provide that finance. So for me, it allowed Reebok to become number one. And so for me, there is no regret. It's fantastic. And I can talk to you from the knowledge that the company did become number one. And we did do an awful lot of opening doors and become a brand, a global brand.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned Paul Fireman, and he was key as well. He was like, one of the things he said, he was like all the bust. And it's almost as if, for the entrepreneurs, it's like it's like your back was against the wall, his back was against the wall. It's like, it was either we're going to make this thing work or it's over with. What is it about having your back against the wall? And it's like you almost like destined to succeed when you put your back against the wall and you have to go all in on your business.
Well, you do that a number of times in many different ways. As you're growing, you get to the point where you've got to make a decision and your back is against the wall sometimes. And I think it's a question on the type of person you are. As far as I'm concerned, it is a matter of saying, well, we've got to make a decision. Let's make it. Let's go forward. We don't know where it's going to lead. But if I don't make that decision, it could mean that we lose an opportunity. So I think it's essential that you see the opportunity and don't let it pass you by, even if you've got to give up. What at that time was not a big company. It had the makings. It needed the opportunity. The opportunity was there, so we had to feed the opportunity, and it's great. And we may be back again to be number one. Who knows? If these people have the right attitude and they're willing to, put their energy into it as well as some finance. But energy is needed, imagination and creativity. That's what they've got to get into the brand again.
Absolutely. I want to ask, because like I said earlier, you experienced like a lot of death in your family, and your brother Jeff passed away in 1980. And it was almost as if you just had to keep going with the business. Did you ever feel like you had a chance to kind of grieve your brother's loss when it happened? Because it seemed like quickly you just had to keep on pushing the business. Did you feel like you ever had a chance to properly grieve?
I I think that grieving can be done in different ways. I think it can be done by being aggressive, by saying, well, this is the time to succeed. It was at a time just when we'd got into America and we were still trying to grow the company. So, and I think it probably doubled my effort in sort of making sure that what he'd done during his life, it was successful. And, there was success at the end of it. And yes, people ask about regrets. And the only regrets I have are the fact that Jeff died and my daughter died. These are things, but you can't do anything about that.
Right.
It's something you can't do. So, all we can do is to value the memory. And, as I say, for Jeff, unfortunately, it was at a time when we just had the opportunity. And that's essentially the opportunity. We weren't successful then. We had a big opportunity, though. We'd made ourselves a big opportunity. And so I think essentially, for me, it was making sure that happened.
Mm-hmm. Of course, like you say, your brother died and your daughter died. And I know it's been years removed from it, but is it hard to let that go? Like, how do you, it's like, there's nothing you can do to bring them back. Like, how do you process all of that now? Do you still think about it? Does it bother you? How do you deal with it now? Like you said, everybody has different ways of grieving, and it's like nothing we can do to bring them back. But how are you handling that now? Like, do you still think about it? And how is it for you today with dealing with those significant losses in your family?
Well, you never lose it. You never lose that feeling, that sadness that, people should be here and they're not. You never lose that connection. But you can always value the times that you had together, the things that we did together. Mm-hmm. I can value what Jeff and I did with the company, the times we had to sit down, and we never argued. My father and uncle, they argued all the time and they fought, and then they never spoke to each other. Jeff and I never did that. We were always very good friends. We worked together. And I must have made a lot of mistakes because I was let loose to do the things. And but Jeff never complained. So, he must have seen me, oh, Joe, why did you do that? But we never fell out, because he also knew that I would be looking for an answer. If there was a problem, I would be looking for the answer. So I can value our time together, the things that we did and how we started the company. I can't change history. I can't change anything. I can't bring him back. But I can take pleasure and value in the fact that he was with me. We started something, and you can't take that away. So I don't think too much of grief. I try to look at the things that we did together. The points that we put a company together. We worked hard together, and we enjoyed it, and that was the big thing. So I think it's looking at the pleasures you have in life, rather than the fact that, unfortunately, people are not here. And would love them to be here. I would love him to have seen Reebok's success. I mean, you mentioned my father didn't see the success, but neither did my brother. And that is sadder, really. But, again, as I say, it's looking for the good things you did between you, and how we managed to get it to that point. And we had got it to the point where the opportunity was there.
I just got a few more questions and then we'll get ready to wrap it up. I just wanted to know, as an entrepreneur, do you think it's a such thing as having balance? Because at one point in the book, you mentioned, you felt like it was a point where either you had to do, you were away from home so much, and it was almost like you were just the man just paying the bills, not being with your wife and your kids. And it's like, if for you, it was a point where it was either build a successful business or be a family man. You couldn't do both. So as an entrepreneur, do you feel like it's a such thing as having balance, or is it just you just have to deal with it the best you can because, like you said, business or family?
Well, I think with a business, if you're growing a business, you're working at a business, that is keeping your family. That is providing for your family. To try and turn your back on it or slow it down, it's an impossible task. I think what you have to do is to keep going with the business and try to include your family. Try and be inclusive. As I say, the opportunities for my wife to travel were many. The fact that she didn't want to or didn't, that's okay. It's if you push them away, that's the problem. I think to try and invite them, because we did an awful lot of them. We did a world tour. It wasn't a pretty good. There were some difficulties with it at the end, but she came with me and we did I went around the world at least 3 times a year for 10 years. I was doing that because I was building the global distribution, and the invitation was there. And we had friends in Australia and who had left the United Kingdom and gone to Australia, and she was able to visit them. So there were many areas where the advantages, and so it's a mixed feeling. I think that if you pull away from your business, you've got to think, well, how do we keep the family together? It's, you need the money, you need the income. And we were lucky because we became a big company. We became a well-known company, and and that does help. I think it must be very difficult if you're working and it's not paying off, if things aren't going. But that again is something for a decision. If it isn't working, then it's failing and it's time to change. But I know for many years, we could have said that our company was failing because it had so many problems. But it is just keeping going. And, to change directions. I know my wife did say to me on more than one occasion, why don't you get a decent job? Oh, yes, okay. But then you say, what is a decent job? And how do you change from what you're doing? Because there's stress, and the family feels the stress that you're going through. And as you've read the book, we hit many problems along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also it's your attitude. If you feel the stress is a burden, yes, you should get out. If you feel the stress as a driver is something that's pushing you and helping you to make decisions, then you keep going, and you should keep going. So, where's the balance? I think the balance is something to do with the company, and it's something to do with making space for your family. And but I don't think you have much control over it.
Absolutely. What would you say is like your most memorable moment of everything you went through the entire process? Whether it's, I remember the moment you said when you came to America, someone seen you and they stuck out a piece of paper for signing an autograph. You meeting these celebrities and athletes. What would you say of everything was one of your most memorable moments?
Well, as you can imagine, there's plenty. There's plenty. There's stepping into the palace in Monaco and meeting Prince Rainier and sharing a glass of champagne. There's stepping onto the dance floor of Ginger Rogers' home in Beverly Hills. These are things that you think, wow. There's meeting so many of the stars of Hollywood at the events that we put on. And there's so many, but I think that getting 5 stars for Aztec, when we got that was the hook. Finding the hook, I think that was probably the most memorable and fabulous moment that I can imagine. I mean, becoming number one, being bigger than Adidas, being bigger than Nike. that was, learning that was a good time. So there were many good times, but yes, probably Aztec becoming a 5-star shoe.
What would your advice be to anyone who wants to become an entrepreneur? They may not want to create a shoe, but they just want to take a leap of faith and create their own opportunity with their business. What advice would you have for entrepreneurs?
Well, I would say, first of all, I hope you're young, because young, you can stand the problems. Failure, you look at it, if it fails, don't think of failure as being an end. Failure, that's a lesson. That's something for you to take away. And the younger you are in receiving those failures, the better. But I will say, if anybody comes to me, look, I've got this idea and I'd like to do this, then I say, go ahead. Give it a try. Because if you don't give it a try, you will regret it. That's the thing that you will look back and say, why didn't I do that? It may not work, but you don't make these efforts without expecting it not to work. No, expect it to work. And most people I know who take that step, they make it work. And they make it work because in the first place, if you're thinking about it, you've got some ideas, you've got some energy, you've got something that is inside you, and you need that. You need that optimism. And if you have the optimism and you just give it a go.
Absolutely. I want to ask a couple more questions. When your daughter Kate passed away, did it make you wish that you were around more? Is there anything you wish had any regrets about it? Is it something that you wish you could have, spent more time? Because a lot of times people will say things like, well, money isn't everything, or spending time with my family is more important than, working a job or anything like that. Is it when you lost your daughter, did that make you reflect and say, hey, I wish I would have been around more in the family household?
Well, I could have wished for many things. I could have wished for the fact that she didn't get leukemia. I could have wished for all the things that, why is she ill? And I could have wished that we could have changed that. But we were the size of the company where I could spend a lot of time with my daughter at that time. I was able to go see her an awful lot in hospital, be with her. We could do an awful lot for her. We took her to Monaco to one of our events, and she was given a nice necklace by Roger Moore. It was fabulous. And we brought Dolph Lundgren to Bolton, and she was part of a very nice big celebration that we had for the company. So I did, I was there quite a lot. It was very unfortunate that I had taken a trip to America when she actually died.
Right.
And that was,
tough.
I probably wished I hadn't have been at that trip, but it's a process, and we didn't anticipate this, but it happened. And it would have been, been better to be at home at that time. But,
if you had to lay out, I have two more questions and then we'll be done. If you had to lay out a blueprint for creating a business, whatever, and you can put your own spin to it, everybody, I love to ask entrepreneurs this. If you had to lay out a blueprint for creating a successful business, what would it be?
Well, I think if you could do that, I think if you could lay out to it, everybody would have a successful business. I think to have a successful business, it's belief. You must have belief. You must have the energy. You must be willing to keep going when people are saying, why are you doing that? You must be able to see something. If you've not got that energy, you've not got that inner fortitude that you need to not give up at the first problem that you encounter. I also find and think it's better to have somebody close, like I had Jeff. I think that way you can at least share a problem, because it's good to talk to somebody. So it's good to have somebody. Julie and I, we have a couple of people who are really good entrepreneurs, desperate, but they seem to be on their own, and they can't seem to employ the right person, because you need somebody really who is very close, somebody, a friend almost, somebody you can talk to, rather than somebody who's looking to be paid money. So you need that, even if it's a relation, somebody you can talk to, somebody who will help. So it's good to have somebody. So for a blueprint, yes, being on your own is difficult. Better to have somebody with you. You must have the energy. You've got to have the ideas and the belief. You must have that belief. Yeah, and like we say, expect problems. Be prepared for problems, but don't let that put you off. Just be prepared. And if you are, because if something comes along, you think, oh, I didn't expect that. Well, maybe you didn't. Oh, yeah, I didn't expect a lot of them, but we were prepared for the fact that let's find an answer. And we did. We found an answer for our name. We found an answer for our silhouette. We had to change these things. But again, somebody to talk to, somebody to be with. You do share a problem, so it is helpful.
Absolutely. And my last and final question, I love to ask entrepreneurs this because we've been doing this while we've been on the road for our self-investment tour. So my final question is, what does self-investment mean to you? What does self-investment mean to you?
I think it means everything. I think you have to invest in yourself. I think you have to believe you can do that. And you have to believe that you're capable. So you invest everything in what you believe, because if you don't believe in it, if you don't invest in it, who else will? I think it's so important that you have to justify what you're doing and justify your existence and justify your motivation. So yes, self-investing, number one.
Absolutely. Mr. Foster, I want to thank you for your time. I also wanted to show you something. I was reading in your book where you mentioned it towards the end, where the D Brown sneaker from the slam dunk contest. Yeah. And so when I read that, I actually had this. I don't know if you can see it. Let me see.
Yeah. This is the
autographed sneaker from D Brown.
Right. I got it. I can see it. Yes.
Yeah. So I seen that. I was like, we were actually in Atlanta this was one time we were in Atlanta, and I had I said, you know what? I made a little video on my phone where we had the autographed D Brown sneaker, and I just wanted to show you that. I was like, man, it was interesting that you mentioned that in your book. So I just wanted to show you that sneaker.
Fantastic. Yes. Absolutely fantastic. Yes. Well done. Getting that signature is a good one.
Yes. Do you still have any of your, like, the old sneakers that you created in the past? Do you still have those older models, or you don't have any of them anymore? I see one in the back behind you.
Well, that happens to be a shoe signed by Lewis Hamilton, who is the Formula One champion.
Okay.
Do you follow Formula One?
No, I'm not sure. No, sir.
Well, he's 4 times world champion in Formula One, and he signed that boot. So, but when you talk about, do I have them? I travel a lot. I move around a lot, and so all my collections, they're all in Boston, all in the Reebok archive. So, and that's the best place for them. Yeah, people can see them. People can go back and look and see what we did way back in the 60s, 70s. And in fact, even my grandfather's shoes are there. My grandfather's shoes. So that's where they should be, in the archive. For me to have them, I have too many shoes as it is. Right. So, and they would get lost. I move about so much, and so. No, they're in Boston. So if anybody wants to see them, just make arrangements with Boston, and I'm sure they're happy to show you around.
Oh, absolutely. Mr. Foster, how do you? I know I said the last question, but this would be it for me. How do you, when you look back on everything over time, how do you want Reebok to be remembered?
How do I want Reebok to be remembered? I would like it to be there up in front of everybody as today, not just a memory. I don't want Reebok as a simple memory. I want Reebok to be showing people how to live lives. We're doing a lot with human rights, and I think Reebok and any company that gets to a position where they can, what do you need to be part of human rights? You need to be part of the ecology. You need to be looking after the planet. So I hope, as far as I'm concerned, that Reebok continues to look after the planet, continues to be something that people value, that they look at Reebok and they see the value. So yeah, it's not, I'm not looking for history. I'm looking for today. Our history is there to look at, and I hope that the history shows a trail of a company which has a heart, which has feelings, which a company which is loved. And I think that if we can have that, and that for me is history and it's the future, and that's how I want people to recognize Reebok, not as something of the past.
Absolutely. Mr. Foster, I want to thank you again for your time. It was an absolute honor and privilege. Thank you for your contributions, because, creating a shoe, I know that couldn't have been easy, but you've made an imprint on society, one that's going to be around forever. But I want to thank you again for taking the time to sit with me. I really enjoyed this conversation. I learned a lot. I love the book. For anybody who doesn't have it yet, please make sure you go get Shoemaker. It's an amazing book. Very fascinated. I love to, study entrepreneurs and see the things that they go through, their thought process and how they handle, difficult situations and some of the things that you went through and with your back against the wall, but you never gave up is truly a testament. And I want to thank you for just sharing all the stories that you did in your book.
Carlos, it's been a pleasure, absolutely. And it is nice to talk to you and to other people and to tell the story, because, yes, now I believe we need to tell the story. And I'm glad that you enjoyed reading the book.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So hopefully everyone enjoyed this episode. Until next time, keep chasing your dreams. This is the Cross the Line podcast. Thank you for listening.